At our Upper West Side brownstones dining table, my wife conveyed a message over pasta, not a quarrel, but a calm statement. No shouting, just Margaret seated opposite me, twirling linguine with a placid air, as if discussing a simple weekend adjustment. "Clifton," she said, "it might be better if you skip the cottage this Christmas. Mom mentioned that you've been challenging recently, and I believe everyone deserves a tranquil holiday." I set down my fork, looked at her, and responded, "All right." No resistance, no protests, no drama. I agreed, poured myself more wine. We completed dinner, and I retired to my office, engulfed in darkness for a prolonged period, contemplating the 22 years that seemed to vanish between the bread basket and the dessert course. However, Margaret was unaware of this when she made her statement. Similarly, Beverly Hartwell was oblivious to the fact that I had become troublesome upon being informed by her daughter. The Hartwell family didn't grasp the situation when they loaded their designer luggage and journeyed to their $3 million Catskill cottage for Christmas without me. At midnight on Christmas Day, my son Ethan phoned from that cottage, his voice noticeably higher than ever before. Dad, your name is on the CNBC News app right now. What in the world have you done?" Before I divulge what transpired at midnight, let me clarify who I am, not the person Margaret depicted to her kin. The authentic one. My name is Clifton Reeve, aged 52. I've been employed in private equity for 26 years, and for the past 11 years, I've headed my own firm, Reeve Capital Partners, situated in Midtown Manhattan. We administer nearly $4 billion in assets spread across healthcare, infrastructure, and emerging technology. I transformed a small business with a team of 12 based in an office on Park Avenue South into a company employing over 200 people, with branches in New York, Chicago, and Austin. Raised in Dayton, Ohio, my father worked on the assembly line at a GM plant before it shut down, then drove a school bus for 20 years afterwards. My mother worked nights cleaning offices and sold Avon products during weekends to help me attend college debt-free. I received a scholarship for Ohio State, followed by an MBA from Wharton through loans and hard work, moving to New York at the age of 25 with only one decent suit, and a resolve never again to witness a plant closure that took away my father's honor. I share this because the Hartwell family, specifically Beverly Hartwell, grew up with wealth long before their birth. Beverly's father was a property developer in Connecticut, and the Hartwell name adorned their country club building even before she was born. 22 years ago, when Margaret and I exchanged vows, I was financially stable but still considered new wealth, self-made. Regardless of how many digits increased in my net worth, Beverly Hartwell regarded me with the same indifference one reserves for furniture not chosen personally. Polite yet slightly inconvenienced. For 22 years, I maintained a smile through it all. For 22 years, I paid for our family's trips to Tuscany, funded Ethan's and our daughter Sophie's private schools silently, hosted Thanksgiving dinners for 18 individuals and Christmas parties for 30 without complaint. I endured Beverly's comments about the unique ways Clifton's family managed their affairs, never uttering a word because Margaret was worth it. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Let me share the details of the 16.5 months preceding that fateful dinner, as it wasn't a random event, despite appearing so. 18 months prior to Margaret's Christmas warning, Hartwell and Vail petitioned for emergency restructuring. This company was connected to Beverly Hartwell's brother, Gordon Hartwell, who had spent 4 decades constructing a commercial real estate business based in Stamford, Connecticut, with properties spanning the tri-state area. At 68 years old, Gordon was intelligent, obstinate, and skillfully navigated 3 market cycles through reputation and personal ties. However, the 4th cycle, characterized by rising interest rates, commercial real estate strain, and skyrocketing office vacancies post-pandemic, caught him in a predicament he couldn't escape. He required funds urgently. He approached my capital partners. It is crucial to be truthful about this for what follows. On a Tuesday in April, Gordon Hartwell entered my office with the knowledge that I was already aware of the financial figures. My team had conducted the initial analysis before our meeting. Hartwell and Vail managed a commercial property portfolio worth approximately $240 million, primarily suburban office parks and retail strip centers in Connecticut, New Jersey, and lower New York State. Around 60% of this portfolio was generating returns, while the remaining 40% was losing money. To stabilize, refinance troubled assets, and buy time for a strategic sale of underperforming properties, They required an injection of capital between $70 and $90 million. For an hour, Gordon discussed these matters across my desk, displaying charm and expertise. He repeatedly expressed confidence that his portfolio had a viable future and suggested terms beneficial to all parties. However, I declined his proposal. This decision wasn't driven by any desire to harm Gordon or any personal disagreement, but rather because the facts supported it. 40% of his portfolio faced an unrecoverable state within his debt structure's timeframe. The suburban office market in Connecticut wasn't experiencing a revival. Gordon asked me to invest $90 million of my investors' capital into a venture that offered limited upside and potential total loss. As a fiduciary managing others' funds, consisting of teacher pension funds, endowments, and retirement accounts, I cannot make such an investment based on social norms like dinner table arrangements. I declined the deal as structured but expressed readiness to consider a smaller, strategic rescue of the profitable 60%, provided he could swiftly sell off distressed assets and prioritize terms protecting my investors. Gordon was cordial. He pondered over it and didn't return my call. Instead, he reached out to Beverly. It appears that Beverly and Margaret had a lengthy conversation around May. Margaret began to present my statements differently from how I originally expressed them. When I described Gordon's predicament as intricate, she conveyed it as me disregarding her uncle. I clarified my duty to my investors, but it was twisted into me prioritizing business over family, a recurring theme. By July, I became difficult. By October, I was omitted from Hartwell family events that I had attended for 2 decades, such as a birthday dinner in Greenwich and a fall gathering in Connecticut. Margaret would return home from these events with a specific, closed-off expression, suggesting she had received instructions. I attempted to discuss the matter directly with her in November, sitting at the same dining room table and saying, "Margaret, it's crucial that you comprehend what transpired with your uncle. I have to clarify my profession and the reason behind my decision not to participate in a deal that might have led to financial loss for my clients." Her reaction was as if I was speaking an alien language. "Gordon nearly lost everything, yet you turned him away, Clifton. Even Mom thinks you could have arranged something differently if you wished." Beverly fails to comprehend the intricacies of private equity. She understands family values, and that marked the end of our conversation. 3 weeks later, over linguine, I was excluded from Christmas celebrations. If you're viewing this and have ever had your personality judged by people who don't grasp your profession, if you've been labeled as aloof or hard-hearted or money-obsessed by those who daily profit from the wealth you create, then I need your attention because what ensued next was not what anyone anticipated. Before sharing with you, I kindly ask for your support by subscribing to this channel, liking this video, and commenting about an instance where someone completely misunderstood your intentions so profoundly that you were left speechless, as the comment section is soon expected to be bustling. Please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. I take every single one into account. Let's return to Christmas Eve. I spent this holiday alone for the first time in 22 years at our 4-story brownstone on West 83rd Street. Margot and I purchased it in 2009 when the market was soft, and after 3 years of renovation, it now boasts a library on the 2nd floor filled with books I've been collecting since graduate school. The shelves are made of dark walnut, the reading chair is imported from a Vermont craftsman, and the fireplace functions perfectly. Every other Christmas Eve, the room would resonate with Sophie and Ethan debating over movie choices while Beverly Hartwell scrutinized my bookshelves with a glass filled with an expensive drink. On this Christmas Eve, however, solitude reigned alongside the crackling fireplace. Margot had traveled to the Hartwell Cottage in Woodstock, New York the previous day. A spacious 4-bedroom house made of cedar and glass, owned by Beverly's family for 30 years, nestled above a frozen reservoir. The architectural charm of this property was once captured by Architectural Digest. Ethan had driven from Boston, where he spent his 2nd year at Harvard Law, while Sophie came from Philadelphia, attending her residency in pediatric medicine at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I personally prepared and wrapped their gifts, leaving them in the entrance hall with a note. I spent the time in the library reading, consuming leftover Chinese cuisine. Drank 2 glasses from a saved 2015 Barolo, fed my 12-year-old golden retriever prospect, who ignored family matters to stay by my side all night. Ate dinner and went to sleep at 11. The phone rang at midnight, the clock's display revealing Ethan's name. I responded after 2 rings. Dad, his voice was alarming. Everyone okay? Yes, safe physically, but Dad, your name appears on the CNBC News app right now. I received a notification. It mentioned that Reeve Capital Partners submitted a rival bid for Hartwell and Vale's controlling interest. Dad, what actions have you taken? I sat up in bed upon hearing this news. Ethan, you were asked to read a headline aloud. Afterward, I unexpectedly requested your help, something I hadn't intended to do. This request came from years of being labeled difficult and 6 months of feeling excluded within my beloved family, whom I've consistently supported and been present for. Ethan, I said, please wake up your mother and inform her that I wish to talk with her. Also, ask her to verify the date when Gordon submitted restructuring documents and find out which creditor is listed as the primary secured party on the Hartwell and Vale portfolio from 3 days ago. There was a pause over the line. Dad, you asked, are you being serious right now? I responded, happy holidays, my son. What neither Margaret nor Beverly Hartwell knew, what even Gordon Hartwell, with his decades of deal-making experience, should have known but didn't, was that he had been the face of the Hartwell name in the room and assumed that alone would suffice. In April, when Gordon approached me with his distressed portfolio, I declined to invest due to its unfavorable state. My reluctance wasn't because of our familial ties, my mother-in-law is Gordon's sister, but rather the unsuitability of investing in a poor deal for my investors. However, the potential of Hartwell and Vale's performing assets didn't escape me. The well-positioned properties, the stabilized assets, and the recovering buildings and markets were indeed valuable. But not at Gordon's proposed price or entangled with the troubled assets. Instead, these should be cleansed, recapitalized properly to reveal a solid business opportunity. Over 3 months, my team discreetly developed a model, excluding Gordon as he expressed disinterest in any partial solutions. Upon analysis, we found this. There was a lucrative business hidden within the portfolio. If the distressed assets were liquidated to secured lenders or recovered, as seemed increasingly probable due to restructuring, and if an investor purchased the functional portfolio at an attractive price, a value significantly greater than the combined worth of the components could be generated. The ideal management team, optimal capital structure, a holding period of 3 to 5 years were essential elements in this scenario. During fall, I constructed this argument. I didn't share it with Margaret as she had ceased inquiring about my work by October. Also, I kept this plan confidential from the Hartwell family because it wasn't a family matter. Rather, it was a business analysis with a possible investment proposition. 11 days prior to Christmas, our team submitted a bid for Hartwell and Vale's performing assets via court-approved restructuring process. Orchestrated by Gordon's own advisors, a bid that could pay off all secured creditors, potentially leaving Gordon with equity, more than in a liquidation scenario. We weren't aiming to seize Gordon's company. Instead, we wanted to be the sole investor savvy enough to bring value. However, CNBC isn't known for lengthy explanations on Christmas Eve. Instead, they make headlines. The headline read, Reeve Capital Partners proposes competing offer for Connecticut real estate firm linked to Gordon's family. In the next hour, my phone rang 11 times, first from Margaret, then Beverly, followed by an unknown number that turned out to be Gordon's lawyer. Next came Ethan again. After being roused by the commotion, Sophie tried to comprehend the situation. On Margaret's second call, I found her agitated. Clifton, what on earth have you done? Gordon is distraught. Mother is overwhelmed. You grasp the implications, demanded Margaret. The humiliation of it all on Christmas, no less. You placed a bid for my uncle's company on Christmas Eve after everything our family has endured, inquired Margaret. What are you saying? I hesitated before responding. Gordon's main creditor intended to seize underperforming assets through a credit bid in January. This lender, indifferent to Gordon and his kin or the 73 Hartwell and Vale employees still employed, aimed to obtain those assets, restructure them, and sell them to a REIT by Q2's end. In such a scenario, Gordon would have received nothing. However, our bid alters that outcome. If the court accepts our proposal, Gordon's creditors will be fully compensated, and he retains a minority equity share in the restructured company. He won't be wiped out. He'll have something to develop further. There was a prolonged silence. I've been constructing this since April, Margaret, ever since Gordon visited my office. I couldn't help him then, but I can do this now. I could hear her breathing. Why didn't you inform me earlier? You said 2 weeks ago that I prioritize business over family. You told me last month that I should have aided Gordon because we are relatives. I stopped trying to clarify the distinction between my work and your perception of it around October, Margaret. You stopped listening to me some time before that. The line was silent for a while then. I need to speak with Mom. I understand. Happy holidays. This part of the narrative is what resonates most with me, not the bid, not the CNBC announcement, not the call at 12:12. I think about the dinner. I ponder on Margaret facing me, delivering those phrases, "It would be better if you stayed away," and the absolute conviction etched across her face, a reflection of how thoroughly she had adopted her mother's perspective, casting me as the obstacle, the trouble, the individual whose absence would ensure a tranquil holiday for the family. And I consider myself, sitting there nodding, pouring more wine. I have questioned myself countless times why I didn't put up a stronger fight in that instant. Why I didn't reveal the entire picture, the business analysis, the 3 months of silent effort, the true significance of my actions and inactions concerning Gordon's request. The truth is, I didn't believe she would listen. After 22 years, I had come to understand the blueprint of Margaret's family. I knew that Beverly Hartwell's assertions spread faster and penetrated deeper than any words I could utter. In the structure of the Hartwell family, I was destined to be an outsider, struggling to comprehend their ways. I had attempted to clarify myself countless times during small instances, but my hope for meaningful explanation faded away. So I chose to forgo Christmas with her and spent the time by the fireplace, the old dog, and a good bottle of wine, waiting for the world to recognize the truth. The days between Christmas and New Year's were unlike any in my adult years. By December 26th, the CNBC story was picked up by the Wall Street Journal's real estate section, which altered the narrative significantly. Instead of Connecticut firm in trouble, it became Reeve Capital Partners provides restructuring aid to family-linked Connecticut firm. This new angle shifted the discourse considerably. Gordon's attorney contacted me on the 27th, neither Beverly's nor his family's. On the 28th, Gordon himself called, a conversation that lasted 40 minutes. He began defensively. Gordon Hartwell, at 68 years old, had been informed about our bid conditions by his restructuring consultants. He grasped the proposal in a cognitive sense. However, Hartwell, who had always crafted deals for others, found it challenging to accept being on the receiving end. I chose to listen rather than remind him of the 8 months he allowed Beverly to sabotage my marriage, shifting the blame onto his own business shortcomings. I didn't bring up Christmas dinners, the cottage, or the label of being difficult. Those points were not crucial in our ongoing discussion. I stated, "Gordon, I scrutinized your portfolio for 3 months. The profitable assets are indeed quality real estate. The problem wasn't with the properties themselves. It was the high leverage on the distressed properties that caused everything to deteriorate. If you choose to collaborate with us, creditors will be paid off, you'll retain a share in an asset promising substantial growth within the next 5 years, and your employees will maintain their jobs. If you resist us, the bank will seize the property in January, leaving you with nothing." Eventually, he questioned, "Why?" he inquired after a long silence. "Why would you do this for me when I left your office earlier?" "This move is beneficial for my clients," was the response. "That's all it ever was, business." After another lengthy pause, Beverly informed Margaret that you were trying to embarrass the family. "She was mistaken," he said. "I know she was wrong." He remained silent for a moment as if weighing something substantial in his mind. "My advisors on restructuring confirm your bid is the best offer we'll receive. I trust their judgment. I will suggest the court accept it." "Excellent," he responded. "I think you'll be satisfied with your decision." He ended the call after another pause. "Clifton, I owe you an apology for not contacting you in April about Beverly." "Yes, you're right, I should have," he admitted, pausing before continuing. "Margaret arrived home on December 30th. She entered the library where you were seated with a potential client and a cup of coffee, and she remained silent for nearly a minute before sitting down opposite you. Then Gordon informed me about the bid specifications. I'm glad he spoke to you, I told you. You spent 3 months constructing this. My team did indeed, yes." Margaret paused, her jaw clenched. "As my mother was discussing your supposed hardships while I was," she trailed off, "while I was advising you not to attend Christmas." Upon hearing this, you looked at her. For 25 years, you had cherished this woman, built a life with her, nurtured 2 exceptional children together, and weathered more Beverly Hartwell dinners than anyone ought to, simply because she was worth it all. Sitting beside her, observing her expression filled with an apparent mixture of shame, grief, and self-anger I had also experienced, I did not feel the triumph I anticipated. Instead, I felt weary. "I must pose a question to you," she murmured. "Very well." Upon recalling my words from dinner when I asked you not to attend, her lips compressed. "What was your reaction?" I pondered, delving deeper than any polished response. "I contemplated that with your mother speaking to you for such an extended period, and in a consistent manner, she might have ceased listening to me entirely, and I did not know how to rectify this situation. Thus, I abandoned my efforts and focused on the one thing I am proficient at: solving problems directly before me." She gazed into the fireplace for quite some time. "I permitted her to do so," she whispered. "I allowed her to control every dialogue, every discourse about Gordon, every explanation you attempted to provide me." After sifting everything through what she'd previously determined about you, she paused. "This isn't the role of a wife I envisioned for myself." "Indeed," I responded, "it isn't." The quiet between us wasn't uneasy, but it wasn't friendly either. It was the quietness of two individuals who had been communicating beyond each other for so long that simply being in the same room and acknowledging it felt like an advancement. "What's next?" she asked. "I'm not certain," I admitted truthfully. "However, I believe it commences with you comprehending that when I reject a poor agreement, I'm not being callous. I'm safeguarding those who entrusted me with their funds, and it concludes with your mother understanding that she cannot dictate my identity to my spouse." Margaret gazed at me for a long spell. "She will struggle greatly with this." "I am aware. I've witnessed her grapple with me for 22 years. I am accustomed to it." For the first time since all of this unfolded, she chuckled. It was modest yet intricate, not entirely content, but authentic. "You chose to spend Christmas alone," she declared. "I spent Christmas anticipating, for the CNBC notification, for reality to align." The Hartwell and Vale acquisition concluded in March. The active portfolio, restructured under a fresh ownership arrangement with Reeve Capital Partners as the dominant shareholder and Gordon maintaining a 22% share, was assessed at $160 million on the closing day, noticeably higher than the struggling firm's reorganization evaluation. Gordon's creditors were fully repaid. The 73 staff members retained their jobs. For the first time in 2 years, Gordon had a spotless ledger and a sustainable enterprise. He contacted me the day after the deal was finalized. "Beverly wishes to express her apologies to you," he informed. "Tell Beverly I acknowledge it," I responded. "She desires to do so face-to-face at the cottage." Pondering about the cottage, the icy lake, the cedar and glass construction, the chair where Beverly Hartwell had held her pricey wine and inspected my bookshelves, I hesitated momentarily before responding. "I'll consider it, Beverly," I said, leaving it at that. What I now understand, which I wasn't aware of the night Margaret instructed me not to attend Christmas, is that being omitted isn't equivalent to being in error. Being labeled challenging doesn't equate to truly being so. In a situation where everything appears to be slipping away, your seat at the table, you're standing within your own family, the fundamental right to be understood by the person you wed, the most effective action is often not to justify yourself anymore, but instead, to focus on the task that will eventually articulate itself without words. For 22 years, I strove to be comprehensible to a family that had predetermined my identity, attempting to express myself in ways Beverly Hartwell would accept, endeavoring to demonstrate repeatedly that the man from Dayton, self-funded through business school, merited the position he held. However, on Christmas Eve, I was alone with my dog, books, and fireplace, relinquishing it all. Not because I ceased caring, but because I finally grasped that the only way to counter a falsehood about one's character is by being so evidently and indisputably oneself that the falsehood can't endure. Gordon Hartwell's company holds value due to my performance. My investors earned money as a result of a tough decision in April and a disciplined move in December. 73 people returned to work post-New Year's because I spent 3 months constructing a model, a secret endeavor. It wasn't easy, but it never was. Yet, the challenges never truly defined me. Margot and I remain married. I'm open about the situation. It's not for the sake of a tidier or more satisfying narrative, but because the reality is that even after a severe breach of trust, 2 people can opt to persevere. We're in therapy, navigating the implications of her allowing her mother's influence to override her own judgment for almost 2 years. That's no small matter to tackle. There are challenging days. Days when, seated across our dining room table, I recall the linguini, the tone, and the "I think it's best." and I consciously decide to stay put. Yet I do stay, because she's worth it. She has always been. She momentarily lost sight of that truth, a truth we both did, and it took a CNBC alert at midnight on Christmas Day for both of us to regain our awareness. Ethan called me on New Year's Eve. "Dad," he said, "I merely want to say, when you told me to tell Mom to check the restructuring papers, in that instant I was enraged." "You seem to have caused an awkward situation," I acknowledged. "Indeed, I made an error. Yes, that too is apparent to me. This young man who has witnessed me tirelessly work long hours and create something out of nothing, enduring countless Beverly Hartwell dinners without faltering, mirrors my reaction when he laughs." He then commented, "Grandma Beverly will have to reconsider her words about you." I replied, "She need not make any adjustments." He continued, "Despite this, you're still planning on visiting the cottage this summer." Pondering, I considered the fireplace in the library, Prospect resting his head on my lap, the solitary Barolo I drank, and the 12 hours of silence preceding the phone call. "Yes," I confirmed, "I will be going to the cottage." "Good," Ethan responded, and indeed it was. "My name is Clifton Reeve, and I am 52 years old. Raised in Dayton, Ohio, born to a factory laborer and an Avon representative, I've devoted my maturity to one constant endeavor: navigating complex, seemingly unsolvable predicaments others have abandoned. I am not obstinate. Rather, I strive for precision. Recognizing the distinction is crucial, and occasionally demonstrating that discrepancy necessitates silent patience akin to anticipation on Christmas morning.